Shannon was out there. There he is. I see him. Come on up, Shannon. Yep. She did. No. Go ahead, Shannon. We are. Yep. We're plowing through it.
Okay,
No breaks. I'm not having any breaks here.
well, good morning, Councilman McDonald and council.
Depends.
Just wanted to get together today, to try and get ahead of the ball a little bit. This year is one of our years, we're gonna be working the bison herd at the bison range. And just kind of wondering what we want to do with the excess bison that we'll be pulling out. On page 7 of your agenda. I've got some options listed out. To like we did last time, sell to the highest bidder on a closed bid system. Or retain for food sovereignty herd. Let's see, retain some of the oh yeah, so I did have in there that I'll be pulling a mix of 2 and 3 year olds this year. Just because we are doing some invasive grass spraying on the range. And so I kind of want to reduce the pressure on it over the winter for the next couple of years. So I'm going to slightly lower the numbers of bison on the range itself. Just to ensure we don't have to feed excess or supplemental hay in the wintertime for them. The Ventonata itself has probably taken over about 1,200 acres of grassland out there, so. And that's fully taking over. That's not counting the residual patches everywhere else. So we're actively trying to manage for that. But in order to reduce the stress on the range itself, I want to kind of slowly reduce the herd for the next couple of rounds. And then we can always bring that back up if you guys choose to do that. So some of the 3 year olds, if you were looking to do like a slaughter animal for them, some of the 3 year old males would probably fit your bill for that. The females are all more than likely going to be pregnant because they're all going to be 2 and 3 year old females. So they're starting their reproductive life out. So and then I was also wondering, we've had some interest from other tribes, specifically the Nez Perce for starter herd bison. Just kind of wondering what your guys' thoughts are on donations. Do we keep that strictly bid out or solicited through ITBC? Or do we go ahead and do like a general solicitation to other tribes for starter herds? And then I was also wanting to bring up the possibility of a commercial herd for the tribe. I was talking with being a little bit yesterday about this, but in you know, that the Ferry Basin agricultural grazing unit that Anita Matt and her family held for their grazing purposes. I know that Jerome is not in the greatest health, and his husband was also kind of looking to start the cattle. So it would be a prime time to set that aside for a bison herd if you were wanting to go that way. And then we could start soliciting grants for funding for fencing, water structures, etc. So those are some of the topics I was kind of wanting some general guidance on. What were your thoughts on them? And how do you want me to proceed with this year?
Thank you, Shannon. I know one of the, I know we did do a small donation to Rocky Boy to help them, because they didn't have any other venue for, at that point in time, for their little herd they started, and we had helped them before with their bighorn sheep, and we had a relationship with them. But I really believe that we want to try to make this operation as sustainable as possible. So for me, income to help offset management costs, because really no money came with this, is what I would want to look at first for me personally. And then of course you're asking the right question. Should we have a you know, this herd is a conservation herd, and if we want to have a food, you know, a subsistence herd, then we should really look at that separately. And I think we should have one, and it's just a matter of where or how big and how we can facilitate that.
Yeah.
And my first choice was actually the Kermit Anderson purchase on the east side of Highway 93, adjacent to the Bison Range, which is the scenic turnout pullout area. But that it has its own limitations also, and the suggestion of Ferry Basin's fine too. I think we really need to set up a team and look at that, because we can use these animals for our own herd, and it's a good market. And if we're going to have our own slaughter facility, we're looking at that, then that's additive to that, value added products, and just our own food sovereignty. It just goes hand in hand. So we can also get buffalo from Yellowstone for our herds.
Yeah, the conservation herd on the Bison Range is pretty pure genetics, so we want to retain that. If you were to start a commercial herd, the genetics wouldn't be so strict on the mandatory for that. I mean, if you're going to use them for a food animal, you're not really going to care that they're cattle genes in their bloodlines. So you could intermix from Yellowstone or from any other herds that you could, if you wanted to mix up your gene pool a little bit, pull bulls in from other herds and actually bring them in and perpetuate that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the marketability, if you say your animals came from the Bison Range and or Yellowstone, is good enough. I mean, either one of those would be great. Any other comments? Go ahead, Terry, then Jennifer.
Thank you. I was sitting with Mr. Stewart from Crow, their representative, and I asked him how their herd was doing, and I think they're around 400 or something now, but he said they were looking at introducing new bloodlines. And so he'd be another one that might be interested in purchasing some, but I'm definitely in support of the food sovereignty process, and a commercial herd I think would be important. Excuse me, I'd mentioned to him, which I would mention to you, that there's a guy in Idaho who's at that meeting up here when we had that egg meeting, and they do they're going to Crow for 3 days to teach those ranchers with cattle how to teach them to stay together and move them accordingly. And I was talking to Mr. Stewart, and I said, you know, it might be, because he said the new bison they got they're trying to get them trained to stay in their areas and accept the other bison. But I thought that might be something to look at. And that guy was also the guy I mentioned to Whisper. I gave the name stuff. They have matching funds for increasing grass production on big drylands like the Bison Range. And he said they'd be very interested in coming and talking and looking. So just mentioning that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Jennifer?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think the commercial herd idea is a really good idea. And I think there's a lot of potential for collaboration, like Terry mentioned, food sovereignty, but I would also hope it could also be a collaboration, ideally with our economic development department, to have a feasibility study and a really aggressive marketing plan. And to, like you said, there is grant money available to do things like that. But I just think the potential of it is enormous for our tribe, for our people to buy, you know, bison meat from us And also, I think even the Quatucknuck to serve it. And then the new visitor center, if there's a cafeteria there, that would be another opportunity. So I just think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Carol?
Yeah, I think if we can do the fish thing up at Blue Bay, we can do ice. And I seen a thing on TV, PBS. It showed the fish thing, and I thought that was pretty nice to watch that. And people didn't know that we sell, those kind of things.
Yeah, they do really well with that fish market, so. I know they have a hard time keeping up with their demand for the lake trout, so. I don't feel that would be too much different than bison. It might cost a little bit more to get it up and running, but eventually I think it would pay for itself. The bison are pretty prolific at breeding, so, each cow that's within age is usually gonna have one calf per year, so. I mean, they build up fairly fast, so.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By what you're saying, Shannon, our bison are more valuable than the common bison out there. I'm wondering if it's cost beneficial to actually do an open auction and maybe sell them at a premium rate. And if we're gonna establish herd, we could buy in with lower genetics. Maybe get 2 for 1 or something of that sort, but it sounds like our animals are more valuable than the common animal.
For startup herds that are genetically pure, yes, they are. They're one of the last remnants of the original bison coming from eastern Montana. So, yeah, genetics wise, if they wouldn't have got integrated with cattle genes back in the 80s, they probably wouldn't be even more valuable. But they aggressively, Fish and Wildlife Service aggressively sought them animals out and tried to cull them. So we're down as about as low as we're gonna get gene wise. Integration into that bloodline. So, yeah, the herd itself is great for starter herds if you want to keep a pure herd going. I just don't, the way they are right now, we're kind of limited on grassland, so we can't grow a huge herd out there without decimating the ground. So it would be probably in our best interest to pull aside another herd and start. So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Sorry, just one other thing. I remember when I was in school, I thought we used to get bison, because I remember we used to go to the range from Hot Springs to visit the range and watch them do all their things. And then I was told that they distributed bison meat to the schools. And I don't know if people really like the idea of giving that away, but to me, I just think that's something that we should be doing as a tribe, is providing that meat to the schools somehow without a cost, maybe a cost of doing the cutting and processing. But yeah, it would be nice. I don't say all of it, just a little bit, so it can be shared with kids.
Definitely. Yeah, back in the 50s and 60s, they did have a commercial herd there that numbered over 650. And that, in that aspect, I could kind of think that was the beginning of the downfall of the range situation out there too. So I don't think I don't want to see that herd grow that big again, unless we get more ground base for it.
Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like Mike's idea, about selling our bunch. And then if there's a chance, like Tom said, get some bison from Yellowstone and bring them up and start your commercial herd, and that way there you could go ahead and still have your food sovereignty program and whatever else that you need. But as far as these bison up here, they're one of a kind,
Yeah, they are.
So that's what I'd go ahead and see if you could, if they want to buy them, they're going to pay a pretty good price for them bison. So I'd go that route.
Sorry about that, Mike. I didn't mean to kind of forget about that portion of we looked into live auction on them. In order for us to do that, we're gonna have to hold these animals for probably a minimum of at least about a month. The way the auctioneer told us is we'd have to get the advertisement going and then we'd have to bring the animals in. We'd have to do live loops of these animals and then give people time to bring bids in. He said it would take time to set it up and time to get it out on the air to where people were actually attending it. So we're not quite set up for that. We don't have the holding grounds to keep them for like a month unless we feed them constantly. And we do keep them a week as their testing comes back. Just so they're clean slate coming back from with their vet checks as we work them. And we do feed them for a week, and even that, you know, I mean, it's almost too long because of the small area that we have to keep them in. But
But
the
Mike-
possibility is there, especially if we had a bigger herd, but
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate holding the animals that long. I do think they would be able to modify their selling process. Account for that, as long as you can identify the animal that's gonna get sold.
and that could be problematic in itself too. We do pull extras when we call, the ones that we sell. We don't sell individual animals to individual people. We just say that we will ensure a healthy looking animal. That way they're not attached to a certain number when they got back numbers or their tag, their pit tags and their bangs tags. That way we're not stuck if we lose an animal like we did last year in the sale pen. We can pull in a different one in to replace that. So it's pretty complicated process when you're actually doing it on the ground, but we don't want to get stuck saying, yeah, this is the animal you're gonna get. So if they bid on a male, we'll ship down a male, but if they bid on a female, you know, we'll ship down the female. The thing with the selling the 2-year-olds like we are, most of them are gonna be pregnant. So they're getting a 2-for-1, and I did put a minimum bid on them last year, so. And I think I'll probably bring that up a little bit, especially for the 3-year-olds, because they're gonna be prime animals.
Is that good enough direction, Shannon? There's mud.
Sell them off. Yeah, we'll keep with the we'll keep with the auction for the year.
Highest and
then.
best value, yes, and
Okay.
and I would concur with like what was mentioned.
Okay,
You're gonna commercial herd, let's grab that from Yellowstone.
okay.
But don't move it
Do we want to collaborate with lands and economic development on this? For a commercial herd setup somewhere?
Oh, I think it's kind of the process, yeah,
Yeah, okay,
definitely.
okay. All righty, thank you.
Hey Shannon, see you this afternoon. I'll just meet you at the visitor center? Yeah. Okay,
Whitney's on.
Whitney's on, okay, Whitney, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I just kind of wanted to come in and talk with council a little bit about phase 2 for the White Swan project. Phase 1, it was moving super well. So we decided to get phase 2 rolling. So phase 2 is just implementation on the ground, getting work done. Still kind of in the process of getting ready for that. It's really built a relationship with us in Lake County. Last weekend we had a big showdown out at White Swan practicing a simulation with the Lake County private landowners, the tribe, and other entities, state DNRC. So just building that relationship. And I really just wanted to come in and touch base with everyone and let everybody know about the White Swan project that's happening out there.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's really all. So within the next year, so we'll start a phase 2, which is a 4-year project of just completing the on the ground work with those private landowners. The intent is to treat land in tribal. We're not 100% sure on where we're going to treat yet. We still have to work with lands and wildlife and the IDT.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah. Whitney, so you said you're working with the non-Indian landowners. Are you also, if I have this understanding right, helping them with their disposal of, wood around the homes and all that kind of thing to, yeah, okay.
Yep. So with our TRL is to treat non-tribal land within the Aboriginal territory along within the reservation. So with that, we will do the mastication for it and the removal of slash and post monitoring. So it will cover all the basics and stages of a treatment.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, about the fire, what is it called? The Boulder area. So was there work done around those homes at all before that fire went through there?
There was no work done with RTRL funds. I don't know about private entities. Lake County just brought on a new fuels coordinator, so she is also now going forward going to be working on treating homes in these areas.
And you said White Swan, right? That's.
Yep, it's out on Rocky Point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for some reason I thought Swan Lake. So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whitney, there's a couple tribal home sites, mine included, which is just near Wymore Lake. Could that be included in the project area?
Yep. So we also will treat allotments in that area. I think there's 12, if I'm correct, allotments up there. And I'll reach out to all those landowners if they want to be a part of it. Just getting the information from lands on who I can talk to. But yeah, the plan is to treat those allotments along with the tribal piece that borders the whole White Swan point.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Council support moving forward, level 2, phase 2. Yep. All right, I will sign this letter, Whitney.
Thank you.
Pardon? Consensus should be okay. Consensus, full consensus. Thank you.
And Greg is on.
Greg, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council.
Good morning.
Good morning. Parenthetically here, I've been taking notes on some of the prior discussion and moving it over to the EDO office. So I want you to know I've been listening and forwarding over those comments so that we're engaged with what's going on there in council. So today in front of you on section pages 9, 10, and 11 are modification number 12 to fiscal year 2023. There's been some new money flowing to the tribes through the contracts and grants group. Of note is about a $1.3 million allocation of forestry funds and some education funds that are coming down. And I think that Mr. Claremont earlier mentioned some spraying that's going to be going on at the bison range for some of the noxious weeds. That's part of the new allocation in the natural resources sleeve there.
Any questions for Greg? Motion, Carol?
Yeah, the Tawahi funds, where are those located in here? I know you probably already did that a while back, but are they somewhere in Health and Human Services or DHRD?
I don't know if the Tawahi funds are part of this increase that you see here on the screen, but I'm happy to look through the approved budget and get that answer out to the group so that you know exactly where those Tawahi funds are allocated. I can do that for you. I can do that for you this morning.
That's what I wanted to know, is where they were allocated, and then also I plan on going to Salt Lake City when they have their follow-up meeting on that funding.
I'll get that distributed to the group this morning before noon.
Thank you, Greg. Any other questions? See none. Motion by Martin to approve budget mod 12 for fiscal year 2023, seconded by Carol. Any further direct discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good afternoon and a good holiday weekend.
All right. That gets us caught up. We will go into shoreline board interviews. We'll move into executive session.